Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Gibson. I'm one of the co-executive directors and founders of the festival. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks, guys. TV Camp Day 2. This panel is extremely important to Kate and myself. When we started the festival, it was basically anyone we knew in television we asked to come, of all sorts. Were any of you here year one? Oh, we got a few. That means the family has grown so much. So year one, very small. It took us a while to really expand to the studio networks, and the studio networks have been so supportive, sending us their new shows, sending us their cast and creators, and we love them dearly. And now we're excited to actually have some presidents of some of our favorite network partners here. And panels like this don't happen very often. And to have these 5 amazing presidents on the same panel together and moderated by Variety is just more than we could have imagined would have happened. So I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Debra Birnbaum, who is going to moderate. And she's gonna introduce our panelists.
Hi, oh my God, hi everyone, how you doing? Well, I don't think you're here to see me, but I'm very excited to talk about not the president, because I think we've had more than enough talk about that president. So let's talk about the other presidents, the presidents we like. Am I betraying my biases too much? Not at all. Let's start with Craig Erwich, the head of content at Hulu. And let's bring out Jennifer Salke, the president of entertainment at NBC. Casey Bloys, the president of programming at HBO. Nick Grad from FX. And Gary Levine from Showtime. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Happy to be in Austin.
Welcome to Austin. All right, so you're all presidents. You get to issue an executive order. It comes with the job title, I understand. What would your first executive order be if you got to be president? Well, you're presidents of a network, but imagine you got to do a unilateral executive order. What would your executive order be?
A no asshole policy.
Well done.
I'm going to second that. I like that. Yeah.
Everywhere.
So you're saying, like, if I'm based on the example in our country, so if you're president, you get to be, you're the boss. You just get to do whatever the fuck you want,
do
right?
Whatever you want.
I guess make sure everyone has to somewhat be profitable.
Hint, hint. Naming any names there?
I think that people in Hollywood give too many gifts to each other. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We don't need gifts.
we don't.
What are you talking about?
We don't need any more.
I used to get like TVs. I don't get anything anymore.
I don't need a
It's
bicycle.
very
I
light
don't
on
need
the
any more
gifts.
bicycles.
No, I think the gift should go up a little more.
No more sweatshirts. No more.
Yes. No more fleece.
You can just take out the stitching of the fleece, whatever show it is.
Okay.
I'm a billboard at the gym when I go with all my swag. I guess my executive order would be to ban series orders off of pitches. Let's actually develop something and do it right.
How important is brand identity to you? Is that something that feels like defines your networks?
Absolutely. Very, very important. Always has been. I think that's all you. That's all you have, really.
I mean, I sort of consider myself. We have the most amazing marketing department, but to some degree, I'm marketing a brand by the portfolio of shows that we have, and so I also think if you don't have a brand, I think the way the world is going right now, you're going to be kind of up shit's creek. But I also think that it helps you make decisions, and I think you can actually be more efficient with your development spend, what you kind of reach for by having a brand. If you don't know who you are, you're just going to be flailing about, just throwing spaghetti at the refrigerator.
Though I do think you need to. I think you do have to have a brand because it helps you, pick what to develop. But also, you can't always let it lock you in because I did not develop Game of Thrones, but I was there when it aired, and I remember a lot of response was, "That doesn't seem like a Game of Thrones show." So you have to be aware of how the brand can evolve. Doesn't have to be just one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, flexibility within what the brands are. We sort of found our way to this brand that feels very sort of human and positive, and it's not just This Is Us, it's The Voice, it's a lot of other shows, including, the comedies. And I think you do have to be flexible, though, because a lot of people would have said that This Is Us didn't feel like a network show, but to me it felt very much on brand with where we wanted to be, and I think it's a good example of kind of stretching outside toward a feeling and a quality that you are looking for.
I mean, talk about This Is Us, because it was developed at another studio and then brought to you. How does that feel for you in this era where there's so much pressure on vertical integration?
Well, there is pressure for vertical integration, but I wouldn't say there's, overlord pressure that we need to supply from our own studio. We will always buy the show from wherever it comes, the great show. Likewise, the thing that feels a little scary and maybe off-brand, but there's a Venn diagram that seems to be, lining up for us, we would step out of our comfort zone. I never thought for a second, oh shoot, this isn't a universal show. I just was like, we have to have the show. So I think you can't let greatness, there's so few things that come through that are truly inspired. You have to jump on them no matter what they are. And, certainly at the same time, I'm trying to build studio assets that can help us, be able to continue to take the financial swings that we want to take running this business, this crazy business.
I mean, we're incredibly proud at Showtime of the breadth of shows that together make up our brand, rather than sort of having a brand that's a funnel that you have to squeeze through, from the extravagant opulence of Billions to the irrepressible poverty of Shameless, and from the global thriller of Homeland to the intimate relationship drama of The Affair. I think we tried to keep expanding what defines the brand of Showtime, and yet still hope and believe that within that wide range of shows, there is something in the DNA of each of them that makes you understand why it's on Showtime.
Craig, how would you define the brand of Hulu?
Well, I think it's evolving. We're trying to continue to build upon our success, and I think when we started, we really were trying to make great shows and then kind of connect the dots of what was responding with our audience. I mean, the word we talk about most is relevancy. We want to be in the conversation. It's critical for us, not just from a creative point of view, but from a business point of view. I mean, we're in a subscription business, so we need to have people talking about us. And there has to be a feeling that what we're doing is premium, because we're literally asking people to pay for the product. So that relevancy, while being entertaining, is really where we aspire to be.
You've obviously had great success just now with Handmaids.
I'm a fan.
How has that changed the conversation for you?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's something that, all the employees at Hulu are extraordinarily proud of. It's been really special and galvanizing to the organization. It's definitely set the bar for us in terms of quality, and again, kind of seeing us talked about in a very special way. So, I think all of us, I think the entire TV business, what's great about it is the bar is constantly being raised. So we don't just do it for ourselves, other people do it for us. So when there's a hit show on another network, that becomes the new bar. So we just put one up there.
We've heard a lot about peak TV. What does it take for a show to break out in this climate of 400, 500 scripted series on the air? What is that magic formula?
I mean, when I think about it, it's always amazes me that these shows can break out in a world where there's so much and there's so many talented people that are able to make things right now and get them out in the world. And, obviously, there's whatever, 400, 500 and climbing, numbers of shows, and also other competition for people's time to do so many other things. And it's just, you just have to keep striving for something really inspired, and then you've got to have a good strategy, and obviously marketing is so important, and digital marketing, and how are we reaching audiences that aren't watching traditional promos. I can speak mostly from a network point of view only, because it's been like, shifting the Titanic in so many ways. So it's really hard. The stars have to align, but I really do believe great things like Handmaid's Tale, like shows on every one of the platforms that these guys represent, and that these shows are contagious. You feel them in the halls. They are bigger than shows themselves, and those things I think always will find a space, even if there's 1,000 choices of things to watch.
I mean, what's great is also you don't have to come out of the. I think there was a time where you had to come out of the gate, and if you just didn't have a successful same-day ratings for your pilot, for your first episode, you were kind of dead in the water. There was no way for people to catch up. We want things to obviously break through. I mean, it was amazing to me that Atlanta came out of the gate, in the first season with such buzz and such ratings. I sort of expected all those things to happen in season 2, because that's what had happened with Louis and Archer and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which it became a word-of-mouth conversation. But I think it goes back to, if the show is great, people will talk about it, and you will find an audience. It happened with The Americans. If it's there, people hopefully will discover it, and sort of being original and being great will help you cut through the clutter.
How patient are you willing to be?
I think it's a function of so many things. I mean, obviously, it's somewhat related to budget, but it's sort of about what role is that show playing? What value are you getting out of that show? The Americans is not lighting it on fire from a ratings perspective, but it's invaluable to us. I think it's the best show on television, one of the best shows on television, and it gets nominated for awards, and people talk about it, and you can't put a price on that. So as long as we're getting some value out of it, those are the shows we want to keep.
Right, like I know Casey the least, but I know like all these people will back quality. So if you can make some sense of it, and you're not, it's not a ridiculous piece of business, and you believe that it can catch on and that you have something there, I think all of us work at companies that will stand behind that. And I think, the measurement for success has changed, the way things are measured. I don't wake up anymore with like a pit in my stomach at 4:45 to look and see if like my show that I love is dead or alive on arrival. Well, sure, if it's dead, you kind of know. As he said, you're not going anywhere from there, so I might like do like a fake one-eyed look.
Do they still have the phone number you call to get ratings?
No, I don't have that. But I remember that. You dial a number and some person had to get up at like crack of dawn and record all that. No, it's you get it. We get a report. Look at like a show like This Is Us. The rating's a 1.7 in the live view, and it'll be down. It'll be down as sure as there's gravity. All these live numbers are going to go down for us. And an hour later, that rating is doubled and then tripled and so on. So you get an accounting of these shows that's a much bigger view of what they are. And then you look at them in terms of, is there a vision here? Do I believe in this? Do I think this is going to catch on? And then, to be able to have our shows on Hulu and Netflix and have audiences discover them a year after they've been on and come back to a second season, it's just a very different business. And as you know, it changes. It's changing every hour as we're sitting here.
I do think we've gone through a little bit of a process with the press over many years to try to explain that the Sunday ratings, while important, yes, you're the press representative. The Sunday ratings, while important, for us, it's maybe 30% of the total, and that's just going to continue to go down. I think Game of Thrones, when we started on digital platforms, accounted for about 2% of the total, and now it's about 26% of the total of viewing, and that's only going to go up. So the where people watch, how they watch, obviously is shifted.
I think the other thing for us and I think probably for all of us, is it's not just so much how many people are watching, but what's their intensity of relationship to the show. You might have a show that does maybe not the biggest audience, but if it is a bunch of those people's favorite show, and if the economics bear out, then it's a show you can stick with.
I like a show that generates think pieces. Honestly, because it is an indication of this is a show that people are thinking about, analyzing, debating, and that's important.
I also think, peak TV is a great subject for panels and essays.
That only took 10 minutes to get that phrase out.
but in terms of our jobs, we don't live in the macro. We live in the micro, and I think for us it's really carefully building a show and keeping that pure and perhaps naive but hopeful mantra that if you build it properly, they will come. And that seems to be the case, and I think it's the reason all of us have had the successes we've had, and one success of one of us doesn't impinge upon the success of the rest of us.
So then on the flip side, what makes you decide to then cancel the show?
To me, when the show is upside down financially and there's no galvanizing force of passion around it, and the showrunner struggling with his vision or her vision, and it's just the show is pushing a rock up a hill without all the bells and whistles that come with there's something here, just hang in there. We very much listen to that. I mean, it's about, and fan engagement. These guys just talked about it. It's like, are people talking about the show? Is it creating communities? Or are you losing kind of passionate, core, fans of it right away? Or did they never build? And then sometimes it's hard, it's often heartbreaking, but you have to just cut bait. And we're obviously all in business to make money. I think we're in a time now where people can tolerate breaking even while we continue to evolve a digital
Not in
ad
Nick's world.
strategy in my world. So it's, we can tolerate that for a minute because we've seen it flip on us with being able to monetize the digital views in a way that we didn't think was possible. So you see things picked up on our schedule. You might ask why something that was a 0.7 could be ordered. It's ordered because we figured out a way to monetize it. So we're not losing money on any shows, but that's really the sort of prism you have to put it through. But I think it comes down to sort of passion and, where's the show sit financially on the P&L.
I think in our subscription universe that Casey and I share, and Craig, the criteria a little different. If you love it, and if people love it, the numbers are far less important, And so it really is sort of your continuing love of it and belief in a show, and feeling that love is being returned by some part of the audience and some part of the world. It could be awards, could be media coverage, could be buzz, could be think pieces. There are many different criteria, but if you believe in that show and believe that the people making it are on their way to greatness, we have the luxury of sticking with it for a very long time.
I think my boss, John Landgraf, said, I think at TCA a year ago, the audience gets a vote, we get a vote, critics get a vote. I mean, and if you can get two of those three, you're probably going to stay on the schedule.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
How you measure the audience now getting a vote, it gets into complexity. Obviously you have to be very patient with waiting for all the real numbers, and that takes a long time to get, and it's a function of passion of those viewers too.
And the CFO gets a little vote.
How competitive is the marketplace now to land a project, given that there are so many people now vying for hot projects that are out there? And what does it take for you then to land that project? Do you have to go straight to series, as you mentioned?
Each project is different. It depends. There's a lot of packages. Some of them sell quickly. Some of them, that I think will sell don't. It really just depends. And you just have to evaluate it case by case. A lot of it is, what do you need? What is your network missing, and where do you want to go programming-wise? So I think you have to be open to all of it.
It's an extraordinarily frothy market. But I agree with Casey, and I agree with Gary in terms of his wish list. It's very, very competitive, but I think that you have to you just have to pick and choose when you're going to go for it. You can't do that on every single one, and it goes towards what are you passionate about, what do you believe, and where are you willing to take educated chances.
Yeah, I believe. I echo what Gary was saying earlier. I believe in the script process. I believe in the pilot process. I think you learn so much from developing a script. Then you learn so much from the pilot process. We from the amount of pilots we do. I think we're at like 90%, maybe 92% from pilot to series. So we usually go forward, but we learn so much on it. And I think when you're jumping into straight to series or from a pitch to a pilot, I just lost something to Craig that was a pitch that he made a pilot commitment on, and it's, what are you going to do? You have to be very
You guys going to
deliberate
drink it out later?
I think it depends. Yeah, and it depends.
What was the project?
Oh my God, it wasn't. Oh, come on.
It depends. I think it depends. I agree. It depends where you are in your business too. We are. Hulu is still scaling up. So I don't know. We started off more in a kind of a straight to series business because we needed shows on the air quickly. It is certainly fraught with risks, and it's not for people with weak stomachs. But to be competitive every once in a while, you have to do it. But I agree. There is a reason that there is a kind of inherited development process.
I also, the network learns a lot.
We just lost out to Casey on something, actually. Yeah.
we all lose things to Casey.
But what I was going to say,
Keep asking.
I'm a big fan of the pilot process as well, because not only does the network learn something, but the showrunner sometimes goes in thinking that the show is going to be one thing and, turns it a certain way based on casting or based on how things are playing. It is an educational process. So it started to, for some, the straight to series became weirdly like a mark of respect. Like you thought less of someone if you didn't give them a straight to series order. But it really is a valuable process to get things right.
And overseeing the studio and kind of having the hand in strategizing where a lot of our deals want to go, if they are determined to go set their show up on any of these other platforms, I think we've gotten to a point where they want to have the conversation. They want to hear why I think the show could work on NBC. And then we really just have a meeting of the minds on what's the best place for the project. And it's hard because sometimes with Kimmy Schmidt and other things, I have to make, the decision with others to let the show live where it has the best chance of succeeding. But if we're dealing with people who are thinking something's a network show, or they have a lot of affection for network, which there are a lot of people left that still do, who are really talented, that I feel like, NBC's in a good position to get those things, but it's all about talent relations for me. That's my kind of, if you're not relating to talent and getting them to trust you and believe that you have their back, you're kind of just out there with everyone else, sort of putting your hand out.
Jen, as the broadcast representative on the panel, do you feel pressured to be able to offer shorter episodes runs to compete?
Yeah, we have multiple. Rise, the new Jason Kadam show, is a 10-episode order. Reverie is a 10-episode order. I think, part of it is scheduling, part of it is creative. So Dan Fogelman wanted to do 16 episodes of This Is Us. We decided 18 was the right number for the way it laid in the schedule. We're making 18. We picked it up for 2 more years, so lots more episodes coming. But we looked at Rise, there was a perfect run for a straight, 10 episodes of Rise, in mid-season with The Voice, and we just thought this is a awesome place for the show, great opportunity. Who wants 3 dangling episodes? And I think kind of press is starting to understand that if we said it was 13 and now it's 10, it's not like, oh, they've lost confidence. There's a smarter strategy afoot.
Casey, you just had obviously a lot of success with Big Little Lies and Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon. Woo! Has that opened the door? We saw now Julia Roberts it wants to, is going to be making a project with you. Has that opened the door to more movie stars?
Yeah, I think everybody always says, everybody will do TV now. And even when I got to HBO 13 years ago, people said that. And it wasn't really true. People would occasionally maybe do a movie or something like that. But I think any star, if the material is good, will do a show. I don't think there's anybody, actor or actress, who has not contemplated it. I don't think there's anybody who's not gettable.
Yeah, Gary, you certainly have a lineup as well.
Yeah. We've been doing limited series as well, and they are a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they're events. You can do some material that really is finite and works. Though I must say, everyone who comes in to pitch a limited series ends by saying, "And we know what to do in season 2."
That's true.
That's now the thing. But the other side of the double-edged sword is we've had a lot of success in luring great actors to television to do ongoing, many year series. And if those actors can play in the TV sandbox and only commit to 8 hours one season, that's tempting, and with very generous fees to boot. And in some
How
ways,
generous?
in some ways we may be, hurting ourselves because the brass ring still is the long, ongoing series where a network invests in a show, an audience invests in those characters, and the love flows in all directions for many years. And I think limited series are great, a lovely complement to that, but by no means a substitute for it. And in some ways, they may be undermining our ability to get some of those actors.
Well, I think you should also point out, if you think about, big shows the last 10 years, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Handmaids, Americans, no movie stars. They're not necessary to launch a show. I mean, they're not. It's nice to have great actors, but I don't think it should be a requirement.
I also think that I agree about the double-edged sword, because I also think one of the things that TV does really well is I think the audiences love discovering people. So the arms race of big talent, I think, sometimes can take away from that. And if you look at the movie business, just because if you have a big star doesn't mean you're guaranteed box office success. So it gives you a comfort, and it's definitely a way to make an event, but it is not a guaranteed recipe for success.
Casting is a process, and it's about matching the right performer to the right role, and there are no rules about it, and we'll pivot based on just a gut feeling or however our creators feel. And so it's not, look, I'm a huge Yankee fan. I feel like they had a terrible period where they were just buying the highest priced free agent, and that does not always equal success. So there's no guarantee that you have this. By the way, there's no guarantee movie stars can open movies. It really all depends on the project. So it's not like every Tom Cruise movie makes $1 billion. It all depends
The last
on
one just
the
did.
project. Yeah. So it's a very complicated, process of chemistry.
And This Is Us is a good example of that. I mean, there's some great actors in there, but it's not huge stars, and some real discoveries that have broken out in an incredible way. Yeah, exactly. So when you have now Chrissy Metz on a cover with, Oprah Winfrey and Reese Witherspoon, it's just amazing. And so, like Craig said, I think people love those stories. They love to make a star.
And Gary, back to your point about season 2, so you've got these great successes with season 1. How do you then, recapture that for season 2? So I'm not going to let you get away with answering the question about Big Little Lies season 2.
Well, I mean, we've been pretty open about. It was based on a novel with a beginning, middle, and an end, and the creative team really did have a great time. So, they went to Leanne and said, "Could you ever, these characters best? Are there any stories that would make sense?" She's thinking about it. I don't know. I mean, it is tough. I agree. It has to be really good. The bar is very high. But I don't
Bigger, littler, lies.
think... We got
There's
the
the
poster.
pitch.
I like it.
Bigger, littler.
Bigger, small. But I don't think this group is going to do something. They've got lots of movies and other things to do, so they're only going to do something if it rises to that.
They did seem like they had fun on Instagram.
Yeah, they really did.
They
It's a
just
great
like
group.
they just like
And I
torturing
mean,
us.
not just the actresses, Jean-Marc, David, Kelly, the whole group worked really well together. It was a great experience for everybody. So.
We'll be waiting. We've gotten pretty far into this without talking about Netflix. They finally have started to cancel shows. Does this show that they're human after all?
Have they canceled shows? Did you report on that? No, I'm sorry.
Yes, we reported on it. I will pass around my phone again. Teasing me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm glad they're canceling shows. Like, it's good. I mean, I don't know what their ratings are, but they obviously have to start making decisions. They can't have, 10,000 shows on. So, I think it brings them sort of back in the ecosystem of where we're all trying to, kind of make the best shows and make the best decisions. I rescind what I said before about making a profit. Like, their business is, they don't have to be profitable now. That's fine. That's their business, and we have a different business. And it's actually quite petty to complain about it. So let me rescind that comment I made before. We just have to. They have a lot more shots. We just have to do better.
No one else biting on that one?
I mean, they're capitalists, so I assume they are, at any given time, making the best decision that they think is in the interest of their business. So if canceling shows is at the phase where they are, it makes sense.
What keeps you all up at night? What worries you?
How low the linear live rating can go, which is, I think, very low.
A show coming together is lightning in a bottle. There are so many elements that can go right or wrong. So on any given night, it is some, script, piece of casting, director, something that I think, it's not going to work out. I mean, that sort of thing. The details of the shows.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to worry about. Yeah. I think the business of, I'll use Hollywood in quotation marks, like the entertainment business, I think we make programming, we do a really good job of it, and I think what's great is, you just worry about like the lack of home runs, and I think if there are not enough big hits out there, it's sort of, like, people thrive. I'm so glad about This Is Us, because I think it just makes people believe in it again. And I think if everything gets too fragmented, sort of no one believes that there's like this kind of big, jackpot at the end of the rainbow. And I think it's good to have a world where there can be big hits, and you can write a big check to talent, which is one of the best parts of the job. So I hope that we can still have more big hits in our business.
I mean, I agree with Casey. It's, you get behind these shows, you have a fantasy vision of that you share with the creators of what you want it to be and what you hope it will be and what you hope people will react to it. But you worry about, is it going to come together? And will people love it as much as you do? Because it can be a vulnerable place to be.
I sleep really well at night. I don't know. I may be shallow. No, it's funny. Actually, I go to sleep easily, and I may get up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning with a start, and it usually is about smaller creative matters. That story, that actor, that director, that issue on that particular show. I mean, we have highfalutin titles, but we really are, on the line, working and molding and cajoling each little piece of the puzzle. And those little pieces occupy a lot of brain space.
Talk about that process. I'm always so interested in the notes process and how you work with your showrunners. Talk about a note that you gave that maybe turned a show around or made a big difference in it. And I'd love to hear specifics.
Well, okay, I'll start. Look, it's a delicate process. There have been networks that speak with pride about leaving their artists alone and letting them do what they want. At Showtime, we take great pride in collaborating with our artists, they get to decide, but we're going to, like any wonderful writer has a great book editor, we're objective eyes and we can bounce things off them. And again, we have complete confidence in them ultimately to do what their vision is. But they're also, buried with 42,000 things coming at them at all different moments. And we have a little distance and kind of remember where it all began, and remember that thing you were going for? Let's keep going for that. So if I was going to point to one, and I hope there's more than one good note I've given, I would bring up Homeland. Okay, the Homeland was a spec script. Yeah, it's a good one. Homeland was a spec script that based on an Israeli format, where Howard Gordon and Alex Ganza did a lot of big adaptation from the Israeli to a spec script that they wrote. They were on a deal at Fox, and they went, I think, to network and inside first. David Nevins had just come to Showtime at the time. He was rabid to get this, and luckily, based on circumstances and the relationship and just the way these things go sometimes, it ended up coming to Showtime. But that really began the process of developing it into a Showtime series. And Howard and Alex are magnificently talented writers, and it was so much fun to just, keep spurring them on to go further, go deeper, and particularly because they had just come off 24, which was, where the emphasis had to be on these really interesting plot twists, surprising plot twists, and the spec script of Homeland certainly had that. And what I think we were able to do with very little coaxing because of their incredible ability was to get them to make the surprises within the characters as compelling as the plot twists. And in fact, Carrie Matheson in the original spec script had no issues. She simply was a CIA agent with who knew a secret, who had been told a POW might have been turned, but personally was kind of a blank slate, and she's one of the most fascinating characters on television. So,
I think that, all artists are different, so we try and really tailor the kind of creative process around what their needs are and how they respond, because you can't have a one-size-fits-all communication policy. You've got to get in there, you got to figure out what makes them work. You really have to earn trust. So I always feel like the most critical phase is the early phase, in terms of making creative choices and, demonstrating that you've created a safe space for them to work. And I agree. I think, frequently at Hulu, a lot of it is, letting writers trust their characters and, letting things play out more versus, most of us have grown up on, 40, 50 years of a certain pace of storytelling, and still getting them to kind of balance delivering the entertainment value, but at the same time, letting things breathe and be authentic. And actually, sometimes I think the fun of it is kind of noticing something off to the side that really sparkles and having them put it more in the center.
We engage in this. I don't have too much to add. You just try and get inside their process and try and help the creators make it the best show can be. I mean, there's too many examples of, I kind of let the writers have sort of their, I don't want to pat myself on the back for like, oh, I was the one who told them, OJ should not be guilty. So, we have those conversations all the time. I mean, I think one thing that was interesting is before Noah Hawley came aboard, when we were developing Fargo, we were very insistent that it did not have any of the characters from the movie, just because it was so, it's such an incredible movie, and it's too high of a bar to live up to. And so Noah Hawley had thought about a Fargo pitch, but it was based on the movie, and that was sort of a trigger for him to rethink it, and that was a good example of a note that sort of sparked something really really creatively excellent.
Yeah, our philosophy is always making sure the creator knows it's their show. Our opinions are opinions and non-binding. So once they feel that we're not going to impose our vision or ideas, it's really just outside opinions for their benefit or not, and let them make the decisions. And the only example I would give, and only because she talked about it, I wouldn't. Again, I don't want to pat myself on the back. And actually, this doesn't make me look. In the third season of Girls, I told Jenny Connor, there's too much. There's too much. Jessa was in therapy. I said, there's too much therapy up top. There's too much therapy. No. Disagreed. So we let them do it. They shot it, and they came back and they said, there's too much therapy. Can we reshoot it? And I said, yeah, okay. But I think after that, they were like, let's pay more attention next time. So that's it. But it was an expensive way to
earn their trust,
yeah.
Right? I do think that is very relevant, because once you earn the trust of a creator, it turns into a conversation. I mean, I really am anti with my team, and thank God none of them are like this anyway, to be like on page 8, like strap in, we're going to give you 2 hours of notes, and I'm going to tell you how to rephrase this. And that's like the opposite of our style. So to me, it's what's the intention, and if I get it, the script or whatever it is, piece of the pilot or the episode, and if I'm not emotionally connecting to what their intention was, then we just have a conversation about it. Like I'm not feeling it, I'm not getting it. And if you build, like I mentioned, the talent relations piece earlier, it's so important to have these partnerships with everyone. And it's not possible with everybody. Sometimes chemistry makes that impossible. But when you have it, there's nothing better, because they actually want to know what you think. And if you can talk to them about it in a way that's respectful, you're leaving the solutions to them. Maybe they want to throw some ideas at you back and forth. Depends on the person. So I've been lucky to have some great sort of creative partnerships like that in my career that really, truly, I think, are the highlights. Like when I think back on my life, I won't remember all these notes meetings, and I'll remember this panel because it's amazing. But I won't remember. Yes, I won't be thinking in my bed about all these things, but I will remember these key relationships with people like Ryan Murphy, Brian Fuller, Dan. I actually have a really close relationship with Dick Wolf. So those things are the most gratifying to me in my career, really.
All right, I want to open it up to questions to the audience. I'm just going to do one lightning round. Show on another network you're jealous of.
Fleabag.
It's really good.
I loved OJ. I thought it was great.
Westworld.
What's with the pause?
We all did it. We all
Dramatic
did it.
pause.
There's so much pain. There's so much pain in this, because some of them started development at Showtime. I want to give a salute to Handmaid's Tale.
I was going to, too. I could pick one on each thing, but I mean, Big Little Lies, Homeland,
Craig,
Handmaid's
I have an
Tale.
Emmy question. Are you entering Handmaids in the unscripted or the scripted category?
Documentary.
I will
Reality
say
series.
that you look at these shows, and not to hijack the question, but you look at these shows like Big Little Lies, Handmaids, even Homeland to some extent. there's these incredible women at the center of these shows, and you look at what's happening with Wonder Woman, and just this feeling of wanting to tell these stories built around women and authenticity, and I just really love all of those shows that we just
I'll
mentioned.
also add one thing as a compliment to my peers on the stage is, we're not just in the business of original programming, but we have a big acquired business. We want our viewers to kind of catch up on past seasons of the best of television, and we have literally bought shows from every single person on the panel
we're all
up here.
partners.
This is us. We have signed up literally to buy every show that FX Productions makes, Homeland. So there's a lot of good stuff being made.
Can I tell you something?
Yes. How much?
Let's make a deal. Yeah. All right, I'll turn it over to you guys now. Go ahead.
What would you say would be one of the most valuable traits that you have learned on the job, or that like a showrunner needs to have to work with you?
That a trait that I want to possess, or that I would like a showrunner to have?
Either or.
I guess both, to be active listeners.
Yeah.
I would say, back to the notes process, one of the mistakes that I see younger development executives make is you can't get invested in your proposed solution. We don't offer solutions. You just say, here's what's not making sense to us. But sometimes when a younger development executive or older one, it's not just about the young, but experience levels, they get invested in their own idea, and you really have to guard against that, because it's not about you fixing it. It's about the writer coming through that process on their own.
Yeah, it's not about like this magical scene from a movie where you have the solution, and all of a sudden it's that's the it fixes everything. We're not, especially on our shows, we're not. I mean, I'm not particularly interested in plot so much. Like, that's more for procedurals. The plot is there just to serve the character, and I think if you're dealing with that, you're likely going to have more discussions and conversations. And so it really is about, empathy, which, listening, being able to sort of understand someone's intent. And so it really, it's being like huge part of the job is just managing people and being able to have a conversation with them and understanding their intent.
I think the other thing I'd say is keeping your ego in check. I think if you're dealing with an artist, they know immediately if you're in love with the sound of your own voice and you're trying to win the argument, as opposed to it's about the work and whatever best idea wins. This isn't about anyone's ego, and I think we have a terrific group of creative execs that I'm lucky enough to have working for me, and I think to a person it's always about the work rather than about their own ego.
Great. Next question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nikki Tomlinson. I just wonder if you have any guilty pleasure shows on other networks that you watch. Are you able to watch TV and escape, or is it too? Are you caught up in the business too much?
I have to watch reality to get, and so Tiny House is on HGTV.
Yeah. There's a show on Vice called F That's Delicious or Fuck That's Delicious. That's like, I'm obsessed with that show. So that's that is truly my guilty pleasure.
This is really embarrassing, but I will just sometimes the kids and I will just watch diners, drive-ins, and dives.
That's not embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing. Bachelorette.
What did you say?
Bachelorette.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
And The Bachelor.
Go ahead.
Is there a show that it broke your heart to cancel but you just couldn't justify keeping it?
Yes. The New Normal, Ryan Murphy. It was a comedy on our schedule at a time we just didn't have. We were kind of in a confused state, new on the scene at NBC, new management, a lot of great beloved shows like The Office and 30 Rock and Community and Parks and Rec had kind of come to their end, and we were sort of grappling, and we tried some things with some incredible pieces of talent and a great voice like Ryan, and I loved the show, and Unfortunately, if it had hit now, the story would be completely different. It was just the measurement and the conversation around how to define the success of these shows was based on an overnight rating and a C3, which is the rating point which I get paid by advertisers for these shows. And it was rough going in that way. We'd kill for it now, and I really regret it. And it was a tough emotional one for me.
I would say every show you cancel takes a little bit out of you, because you live with these shows. It could be years from pitch to pilot outline to drafts of pilots to finally deciding let's make it, casting it, filming it, sometimes doing some reshoots, then assembling a room and each individual story outline of an episode and draft and table read and rough cuts and you get invested, you really can't help it. And so every cancellation hurts, without a doubt. His, not mine.
Yeah. For my time.
Someone else is crying about that.
All right, one more quick, go ahead.
For an anthology show like American Horror Story, what's the process like of picking the next theme? And what are like the difficulties of restarting every season?
In terms of picking the next theme, the process is Ryan Murphy tells us what he's going to do, and then we say, great, that sounds awesome. Because it is. I think I don't find it a challenge. I find it's an opportunity. And, our marketing team loves, they actually get some access to Ryan early on, even hearing things that we don't hear, just to prepare for the marketing. But they love it. They get so excited because they don't have to do the same thing every year. So to me, that model works really well. Look, it's financial. Sometimes you got to burn down the sets. That's always tough. But you get to start over, and I think it gets everyone pretty excited.
How important is marketing for all of you? How early do you get them involved in shows that you care about? Can they make a difference in turning a show around?
I think it's really important to start the conversation with the audience really early. You got to try and, really trigger an interest early on so they can kind of then build upon it. One of the things I think that's interesting for an on-demand platform is that we kind of continue to market season 2 as season 1. So we almost look at the first 2 seasons as the first season. So we look at it not just in the opening day mentality, but over the course of the 2 years. We might spend more money to market season 2 than 1 because we know we can bring people into the funnel on season 1. But it's, as we talked about, there's so much stuff out there. You really have to stand out. And not just do the shows have to be creative, but the marketing campaigns have to be as creative as well.
And, we're able to, tap into Symphony, which is, the all divisions of NBC Universal kind of working in concert, promoting an idea or show from Parks to USA to Comcast. It's just everywhere. And it can really make a big difference. And also just getting out there early with a piece of viral material. You look at what's happening with some of the Will and Grace stuff that we're putting out, and 25 million people watching, pieces and sharing. You see those trends. We obviously saw it with This Is Us, and we learned a lot in that process. So I think that fan engagement early can be done if you put together something incredible and you see the match get struck and people are leaning in and sharing and getting excited. That's just a great sort of sign that you're galvanizing a passionate community.
How's the internet has removed all these boundaries and it's shifted TV so much. How are your markets changing internationally, especially with NBC? How are your products changing as far as not just in Western culture or Europe or is that
It is. We just finished our international screenings. They did go very well because we happen to own some big pieces for them, like big, action show like The Brave that's coming in on after The Voice. A big military, heroic, close-ended stories. But they still look for these close-ended, they love a big star, they want action, intrigue, those kind of shows. The rest of it is we've, found other ways, like our partnership with Hulu, to figure out how to let these shows live on that aren't totally we don't own This Is Us, so that was an unusual deal, but someone in the room has had a hand in that. But it's tough. You have to figure another way. That all comes down to this sort of looking at the financial performance of these shows when you can't rely on a huge number coming from international. But we had shows like Blacklist and Blind Spot that are, Warner Brothers and Sony owned shows that were, still tapping into a huge international number. And so the goal would be to, as part of our diverse portfolio, to have some shows like that coming out of our studio on NBC or other networks. But that's a big changing market also.
In a perfect world, and what we like to have is, our shows premiere globally around the world, within the same day. Because I think because of the internet, it can be a much even bigger conversation. So that's the goal.
And it's been nice for us, I've been at Showtime a long time, and first it was building up Showtime in the United States, but in the last few years, Showtime has actually started to become an international brand, and we now have output deals in several countries, in several continents, and they are actually now promoting Showtime as a brand on their networks and making exclusive output deals to be the platform for our shows around the world.
Craig, I don't know if you heard, but there was a flying banner in Austin today saying,
Uh-oh.
it was saying, Hulu, please pick up pitch or something around those lines. And that made me think about how seriously do you guys take those passionate fans that are signing petitions being like, please save this show that was canceled on another network or things like that?
Yeah, well, we do listen to that. If we're going to kind of transfer a show from another network, it has to satisfy, there's a very specific set of circumstances, which is, as I mentioned, we have past seasons of shows that are premiering on other networks. So for instance, the Mindy Project. Mindy was on Fox. Every time a new season would premiere, we would get the old season. And we knew that our audience loved that show. So when Fox decided that it wasn't viable for them to carry the show anymore, we knew quantifiably there was still a huge audience for it. So in a case like that, we knew it made sense to pick up Mindy. The same with Nashville. A show that's on another network where we don't really have the past seasons, it doesn't really make sense for us. I respect the passion of it, and I love to see it because I love that some show, almost every show is somebody's favorite show, and I think that's great. But in general, there's often kind of brand connotations to that we'd rather just have our own shows.
Craig, Carnival, right there.
There you go.
We had a show at NBC called Timeless that in the meeting, and we loved the show. This is back to that how you evaluate success of these shows. We love the show, produced by Eric Kripke and Sean Ryan, beautifully executed show, a show that we knew there was a large, passionate core audience. We had the opportunity for it on the network was at 10. Was it probably too late for a show like that families maybe wanted to watch together? Maybe. But we, it was a Sony produced show. We did have an ownership stake in it. We just looked at it at the end of the day. That was one of the ones that just wasn't that clear, but we did make the decision, given the schedule and other opportunities that we wanted to give shows, that we had to let the show go. And it was tough. It was a hard decision to make. And the outcry from fans really did make us not sleep well that night. And the next day we came back in the scheduling room and we were just like, this doesn't sit right with me. Like, I feel like this show it shouldn't go yet. It needs to keep going. So we quickly made that decision, called them and had them release that news. Everyone thought there was some conspiracy afoot. We were not that clever. We were busy doing other things. We had an upfront the next day. But it was such a joyful moment to be able to reach out to those guys who were commiserating with all their fans online and be able to say, the show's coming back. You guys figure out a fun way in the next 20 minutes to announce that to your fans. And those are fun days in a world where, there's a lot of tough times.
Does she get an airplane? And fly around. Does she get an airplane and fly around?
There's one available.
So not that we, oftentimes things are really not happening. They're deader than a doornail, and everybody's sending letters and doing things, but this just happened to be that perfect moment of kind of a regretful letting go of the show that then swayed it the other way.
Well, unfortunately, we've got to end it there. Thank you so much to all of you. Thanks to all our presidents.
Thank you.